We're back at it again with a list of characters who can't die. This time part 2 for our dear supervillain friends. And just remember that because death is a bit of a frequent occurrence in comics these days, we'll be focusing on characters who are more so immortal, innately, by nature. So with that in mind, let's jump right in. And at number 10 is the Sentinels. Starting off this list are the mutant hunting robots, the Sentinels. First appearing in the X-Men 14 in 1965, Sentinels are hard as to defeat. But they're also robots, so hey, immortality, hi. While most are only capable of tactical thought, some of them are self-aware. And there's variants that can learn from their experiences, developing specific defenses based on previous fights. The Sentinels in X-Men Days of Future Past were pretty damn terrifying. And at number 9 is BIZZARO. BIZZARO is the reverse Superman, plain and simple. And he's just as invulnerable, with his weakness being blue kryptonite. Green kryptonite actually makes him stronger. While he's typically an antagonist, BIZZARO is sometimes an anti-hero, and similar to another villain coming up on this list, Frankenstein's monster was a big inspiration for the character's creation. And at number 8 is Dracula. We talkin' Marvel's Dracula here, friends. Based on Bram Stoker's Count Dracula, this Dracula is a Marvel supervillain who, you guessed it, is immortal. As most vamps are. First appearing in Atlas Comics' Suspense number 7 in 1951, and later being revamped, no pun intended, in Tomb of Dracula number 1 in 1972, Dracula initially disappeared since the Comic Code Authority prevented publishers from including creatures like vampires in their publications. After this rule was revised in 1971, allowing comics to feature characters who were established from literary works, Dracula re-emerged in his own title after Marvel debuted Morbius in The Amazing Spider-Man 101. And at 7 is Zombie, Simon Garth. This Marvel character first appeared in a standalone story in Menace number 5 in 1953, and would later be brought back in 1973 in Tales of the Zombie number 1. Simon Garth was kidnapped by his former gardener, who he had fired, and was used as a voodoo cult's human sacrifice. But he mystically transformed into a reanimated corpse, thus beginning a troubling back and forth history where he's sometimes an anti-hero, but still up to some villainous shenanigans. He's filled with vengeance, and when under the control of a magical amulet, has been forced to commit some pretty awful acts towards those he cared for. And number 6 is Saint of Killers. The Saint of Killers is a character from Preacher, first appearing in a cameo in Preacher number 1 in 1995, tasked by having to kill Jesse Custer because of his possession of Genesis. He's a grim killing machine with a tragic backstory, transformed into the Angel of Death, collecting the souls of those who die by violence. And he's immortal, divine, and has omnipotence and no need for air, food, or water. And at number 5 is Lilith. Hey, you know what typically can't die? An ancient demon goddess. Appearing in Marvel Comics, her debut was in Ghost Rider number 28, and she's a sorceress who can manipulate magic, summon demons, and give birth to her own demons called the Lilith. She's immortal, and lived in Atlantis prior to it being submerged into the sea. When she's released from her ancient imprisonment and finds out that Ghost Rider has been killing off a lot of her Lilith, she ain't happy. And of course, chaos ensues. And at number 4 is Ultron. Another robotic villain on our list, Ultron gets his invulnerability and technically his immortality from, being a machine. And while he can be destroyed, he just keeps finding ways of coming back. During the 2000s, the Avengers discovered that every creation of Ultron has a secret program built into its subconscious. They're compelled to rebuild Ultron. So having a little help from the fam definitely goes a long way. That being said, he was recently shot into the sun when he was merged with Hank Pym and survived that, so that's some pretty impressive invulnerability skills for you. And at number 3 is Solomon Grundy. Nothing screams defying death more than being a zombie. Solomon Grundy is typically a Batman villain who is near invulnerability, is virtually indestructible. Oh, and he's also immortal. First appearing in All-American Comics 61 in 1944, Grundy was a wealthy merchant named Cyrus Gold who was murdered and then had his body ditched in Slaughter Swamp, which is pretty close to Gotham City. 50 years later, his corpse is reanimated. He doesn't remember much of his previous life, and when asked what his name was, he can only muster that he knows he was born on a Monday, which causes a hobo to bring up the Solomon Grundy nursery rhyme. And he's like, hey, that's cool, I'll make that my name. Which is exactly what he said, but not really. And at number 2 is Ares. A Wonder Woman villain, and definitely one who's getting a lot more interest after his debut on the big screen this year, Ares is a god. The god of war. And guess what gods are? They're immortal. But that doesn't make them entirely invulnerable, as we've learned from his reoccurring antagonism towards Diana. As the god of war, he draws strength and power from malevolent psychic energy, and provokes battle and chaos, just by being present. What do you think about Ares' portrayal in the Wonder Woman film? Give us a shout about it in those comments below. And finally, and at number 1 is the First Evil. The First Evil, or rather, just the first, is an entity from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and is the personification of all evil that manifested from the existence of evil in the world. It predates man and demon, and it can take the corporeal form of any person who has died. Aside from being incredibly strong, it psychologically messes with Buffy and the Scoobies, and all of the other potential Slayers, sending out its minions to kill them all off in an attempt to end the line of Slayers. It can't die, which made it a particularly difficult big bad for Buffy to face off against, having to destroy its army and the Sunnydale Hellmouth in order to render it powerless. So there we have it. What do you guys think? Has your favorite invulnerable villain made our list? Give us a shout in those comments below and share your thoughts. And if you dug this video, make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. But for now, I'm Kelly Pally, and this has been Top 10 Nerd. I'll catch you guys in the next one.